This is Danny Flexon here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by my good friend and top trainer, Peter Fury. Peter, how you doing?
I'm all right, Danny. Thanks. Yeah, everything's okay. Thank you.
Good, good. I was just saying off camera, you've got a lovely home. I've only seen it through the wonders of Zoom so far, but every time it's a different backdrop and they're all as nice as the last.
I'm just a lodger. Nothing belongs to me. Everything belongs to the missus. And, I come and go, get me toilet brush in me bag, and away I go.
Well, can't forget the toilet brush, I guess. And you were also saying,
Not toilet brush, toothbrush, I should say.
oh, right, okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. I didn't want to cast
That
aspersions.
makes more sense, exactly. I definitely don't go traveling with a toilet brush.
Turn up at a hotel with your own toilet brush in hand, they might be a bit offended. I don't know.
Yeah, they should be.
You were also saying off camera you're not far off traveling away for sparring with your son Hughie. Obviously, he's got his next big fight coming up on the GBM show end of September. Really good show as well. I know GBM have now done that deal with the Zone, but just an excellent show top to bottom. And I think when I first looked at it, Hughie's opponent hadn't been confirmed at the time. And I thought, oh, he probably won't be fighting anyone particularly good because the other fights on the card are so competitive. I thought, they've probably done the budget, to be honest. But he's fighting, what I heard yesterday, Christian Tun, which is a really, really good fight. Yeah, why him and why at this stage for Hughie?
He's had two fights now. He's heavily in his training, and he's back. And these are the type of fights that he needs. So, if you got world aspirations and you want to be something special, you can't keep having gimme fights, can you? So you've got to fight some staying opposition. So now's the time. So so yeah, it'll be I expect a good fight for him as well.
And Christian's a giant. He's very tall. Reminds some people, maybe more facially than in the ring, of young Klitschko. There is a resemblance there. But a talented fighter from a good team. He's worked a lot with Sugar Hill Stewart as well in the past, although I don't believe he's his head trainer. Well, how much do you know about him? And stylistically, what do you expect against Hughie?
Well, I haven't seen much of him, to be fair. He's been picked to give good rounds and put up a good performance, so I'm sure he will do. It's not a gimme fight, so he's got to think about it. He's going to have to be on his A game, as with all decent opposition. So that's why he's there, and that's why he's been picked, because this is a guy who's coming to win. He's coming to fight back.
Is
He's
this
not,
kind of
what I'm trying to say is he's not a journeyman. He's got ambitions. So he's got a good record. So yeah, it's a good fight.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be looking at this as a huge opportunity to kind of make his name off Hughie's back, even whether he wins or whether he just puts in a good performance. This is a huge shot window for him as well.
Definitely. It's the same with anything. This is boxing, so, but good fights need to be made. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see one-way traffic. He's had a couple of fights back, to get rid of the ring rust or whatever, because he had a long time out, but he's back in now. So, yeah, looking forward to it. It'll be good. It'll be a good matchup.
And there's a lot of competitive fights taking place, certainly in the last maybe a year now, in the heavyweight division, particularly in Saudi, although they're debuting over here in September, and we'll talk about that show in due course. But could this be kind of the springboard fight for Hughie to get him back challenging at world level where he's been before?
Yeah, I think so. We've been promised a big fight at the end of the year, the end of November with Boxer. They're going to get him somebody, they're going to get him somebody in a high-ranking fight. So, these are the type of fights we need. So, yeah, if he can, this is I think his third one back. So, all being well with this one, you move on to the next one, and then we'll fight somebody who's a name, and hopefully within the top 15.
Seeing all these big fights happening, particularly on the Saudi shows, has it ever been at all frustrating that it wasn't a year later? So when Hughie was a bit further into his comeback?
It don't matter, Danny. Time and patience is the key. It's your time when you're ready. And when you're not ready, through various issues, it's not your time. You know, that's it. You go when you're ready, and if you're not ready, you don't. So he's had obstacles, and he's ready. He's back, and as you can see, he's not. He's progressing. So if we can get this fight now, which is made, and into November, I think the end of November, he'll box again. He's had 4 fights back this year, which then, being so, if he's successful again in the end of November, and he beats somebody in the top 15, then he's in the world mix. And that's it. Look, let's be honest, yeah. If you don't talk a lot and you don't prostitute yourself today, then you're unpopular. So this is the fight game. I'm not interested in all the shit that we see on the social media. People pretending, you know, looking up to study lines to get attention. We're not interested in any of that, are we? You know, this is the fight game. And look, where Hughie is, because he doesn't say a lot, he just fights. At the end of the day, you got to take the bull by the horn. So it's an harder route for him because he's not talking his way to the top. He's fighting his way to the top, which is what real boxing people want to see. So that's where we are. That's the mindset with it. So yeah, got to take chances, fight down on your gun field, take fights that nobody wants, get the fights, and that's it. You know, your breakthrough will come.
Does that, in your view, does that make the journey, the accomplishment more valuable, more satisfying that you have to do it that way?
Yeah, because it's better that way. You know, Mike Tyson said a true saying. A lot of the heavyweights today are businessmen. You know, and it's a good quote. He comes out with some very, very good quotes. You know, so better to be coming up the hard route.
Interesting. And we talked a lot about Hughie's physical problems that he's had in the past and the illnesses and so on. He's obviously fully fit now. How would you compare his mindset now to the Hughie of 5 or 10 years ago?
It's all about experience, you know. You get older and you realize you grow from your failures, don't you? You know, so that's it. Experience is earned, it's not given to you. So it's just the same in life. It can be boxing, it can be going down the street, it can be getting your living, doing anything. You should learn from your experience, and if you don't learn from your experience, then you're not going anywhere. So that's it. You know, there's plenty of headless sheep up and down, you know, but if you can learn from your experience, we all make mistakes, we're all human, we all sick, we all do all sorts. But if you can learn from your past, think about it and progress in sport, that's what makes champions. You know, champions are people who fail and refuse to fail. Champions are not champions who keep winning and getting everything right, because then it comes back down to the silver spoon mode. You know, life is, in general, sport is very, very hard. It's a cruel game. It's a hard game, but the rewards are there if you can get through the minefield. I'm talking about the fighter now. Concentrate on what you need to do and relax and get on with your job and cash in on your experience.
Bit more of a kind of personal one for you. You've obviously taken fighters to world titles before a number of times. Will it mean more if Hughie gets there because he's your son?
Yeah, listen, it's your son. You want your family to do well, but you have to detach as well, because it's black and white for me. If you're good enough, you're good enough. If you're not, you're not. It doesn't matter if you're son anybody. You know, the fighter's got to be able to do what you ask them to do. They have to adapt and do the things that they're not good at and progress on them. You know, look, to be a champion, you've got to be a clever person, study your job, listen to your instructions, and better yourself and carry them out. And when you've got them right, there's always something else. This is boxing. So I would say the answer to your simple question is yes, it'd be lovely, but it is what it is. It's a fight game. You can never say for definite what's going to happen.
And he's not the only heavyweight under your tutelage at the moment. You've got Matty Harris, of course, as well. Looked very impressive since joining your stable, it's fair to say. What's next for him? What's the plan for the next year or so?
Plan for Matty Harris is to keep him busy. and he's learning all the time. This job is about growing. Matty Harris is growing mentally and also physically in his boxing. You know, this job is it's no quick fix, but he's improving. I will say about young Matt, he's improving all the time, and he's ticking a lot of boxes. He's getting a lot mature. He's understanding the game a lot better. So yeah, I expect good things. He's an excellent talent. He's a real athlete. So it's going to be a very interesting journey for you, Matty Harris.
Now, Riyadh season, as I mentioned earlier, debuts in the UK, September 21st at Wembley Stadium. I know you've spoken at length previously about the main event on that show and who you favour. I just want to ask you about a couple of aspects of it. I said this to you earlier. A lot of people are citing Anthony Joshua's experience as being key in this fight. You talked about it yourself with Hughie just now. How important is that experience and the quality of opposition fighters have faced in the past as well?
I think it's highly important. I think it is. And I just think it's that age, that maturity. I think it definitely plays a factor, for sure. Because if you keep getting wet long enough, you know, you're going to improve. You know, because it's layers upon layers upon layers, and you keep growing. It's like stepping up steps. You keep stepping, you keep stepping, you keep stepping, and you know, a lot of these young fighters with you know, how many hurdles and how many problems have they had, and have they really studied the game of boxing? It's all right being able to punch and being an athlete, but you know, you have to be able to miss punches in this heavyweight division. One for longevity, but one to stop going face down on the canvas, because you're in the heavyweight division. There's no heavyweight walking through punches, not from heavyweights. Eventually, you're going to get ironed out. So that's that skill set, making mistakes, offsetting, all of this plays a vital role. And he's been around the block now. He's a fully mature man, Joshua. So that's the reason I edged towards him. But the other one's a young fighter, plenty of talent. He wants it as well. Seems to have grown a lot from his failures. He's come on a lot. So it's again, with all these type of fights, Joshua's got to be on his total A game plus. It's not a given. It's got to be on his A game for this fight, sure. But sure, he will do. But just on the experience factor, I edge him as favouring it.
When we talk about experience, does that include handling pressure on a big occasion as well? Because Joshua's fought at Wembley Stadium before. Not many boxers can say that, obviously. There haven't been that many shows there. But, you know, for Dubois, it's going to be a much bigger event than he's faced before. Much bigger media scrutiny, a lot more fans, all of that stuff.
I think experience covers a whole multitude of things. We say experience, but it's all of that, what you say. It's all of probably another 50 things, what you've said. So experience is an umbrella that covers every detail of boxing. So experience covers all of that and more.
Okay. And there's been a lot of talk in the build-up about the trainers of the two fighters because they're not the trainers they started their careers with. Just from your experience as a trainer, when you get someone who's already been with one or multiple other trainers previously, how much can you change that fighter, or how much input can you have in changing that fighter?
Good question, Danny. I think from personal experience, is talking to the fighter, and then you've got that relationship with the fighter where they're really listening, they're taking on board everything he's saying, and they're trying their very best. And that's all you can ask for. And if that happens, it's happy days. And when the fighter respects you as a person, I think that's a big part of it. So I think don't need to be the best trainer on the planet. I think you just need to understand fighters, understand what they go through, and just talk to them and try and unlock what issues they may have. I think that answers the question more than anything. But I think it's all about how they get on and how they take the information. So some trainers, they might not take the information so well, but he could be asking, and another trainer could be saying the same thing, but he can do it a lot better because he's explaining it different. So all these type of things doesn't mean to say the past trainer's shit or whatever. If they don't get on, they don't get on.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people were saying with Joshua is that, he was with Derek James, Robert Garcia, Rob McCracken, etc. And they're all really good coaches, all highly regarded. But maybe the current setup with Ben Davison is a better match for who Joshua is now rather than who he used to be. Like he's matured and he needs a different type of trainer now. Could that make sense?
Yeah, and he's got to look at his own experience, what he's done. Look, down there, down the south of England, is probably comfortable for him because he's near where he lives. It's not far to commute. All of these things could play a role, And because he's trainer, Ben's talking to him and asking him what he needs to do, and he likes it, and he's doing it. He's doing it well. The trainers need credit as well because if you've got a trainer with a brick between his two ears, they just wants it to set of pads, and you've got no insight or foresight how to go about fights, then you're as good as your team. It's like the Formula One car racing. That driver's only as good as his team, isn't he? And although the team isn't in there doing the fighting, that's down to one-on-one. That preparation, that mental preparation, that strategic discipline of what you're doing round by round, that's a team effort. Because a lot of fighters, they don't see things because that's why you're outside the ring. That's why when they're sparring and you're watching it, you're seeing things that they don't see. Where they need reminding the things they're not doing. And you say, well, hang on a minute, you stop doing that. Can you make sure you implement this in your game? All these type of things, fighters need reminding. It's not because the fighter don't know, because sometimes the fighters can get embroiled in the heat of the moment and start forgetting stuff they need to be doing. That's why you're outside the ropes, because you've got a perfect view of looking at it, what they need to be doing. And that needs to be explained properly. And some people can, some people can't.
So with that in mind, Dubois obviously looked better than he has before in his last two fights particularly. How much credit for that goes to his own maturity, his experience, and how much goes to Don Charles and Kieran Farrell bringing it out of him?
Don Charles is a good friend of mine, and Don Charles is an experienced man, and he's worked with a lot of heavyweights. So he knows his job as good as anybody. And he'll know where his man is. We're only sitting on the outside. I don't know anything about his man or whatever. That's not my job. That's his job. But if there's a man experienced enough to get him to the top, Don Charles is a perfect candidate for that because he knows his job. The man's not brand new in the game. He's been around the job a long time. He's got a son who's a heavyweight, big heavyweight. He knows heavyweight boxing. He's had Derek Chisora for forever. So he's been in big fights himself, Don Charles, and he's a good man and a good trainer as well. And we're seeing again the rewards he's having. You got Ben Davison with Joshua. Joshua looks a different fighter, and he's doing good. And then he's gone with Don Charles Dubois, looks a different fighter altogether again. So it depends who they gel with and who they're comfortable with.
We talked a lot about experience. Don's obviously much more experienced as a trainer than Ben, just because he's a lot older. I'm sure he won't thank me for saying so, but he is. How much of a difference does that make, if at all, the more years the trainer's spent in the game?
I think everything matters. I think I can only remember back. I think we learn all the time. I think every year that passes, I learn something new in this game. We never stop learning. And if you think you know it all, pack up and get another job, because you don't. Nobody's the cleverest man on the planet. You'll pick up things all the time. It's the same with the fighters. It's a revolving door. You keep picking up things all the time. You study the game, and that's it. You know what needs to be done. And sometimes, rather than going into explicit detail with a fighter, you can say things in a couple of words which is the same as speaking for 2 minutes. So again, it's all about that experience. But the main thing for me is if the fight's tipping upside down and you're in it. One thing training, it's another thing when it starts going sideways. You can only do your best, and you've got to know the fighter as well. And if you start piling too much pressure on in the corner, they can lose it altogether. Some fighters don't like negativity. Some fighters don't like when you speak to them sternly in the corner. Got to know the fighter and what's best for them to get them through the rounds.
How much of a better trainer do you think you are now compared to, say, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're learning all the time, so I'd say better because of the experience involved. But that's it. Ask me where I've got better. I got on my nose. The only thing I can tell you that I know my wine's pretty good. I enjoy that. So apart from the rest of it, Danny, who knows, mate? We'll see.
Yeah, well, maybe that'll translate into the boxing side somewhere. We'll have to work it out down the road,
Definitely, yeah, sure.
Well, let me ask you a bit more about that September 21st card, because it's not just about the main event. You've got some cracking fights on there. You've got Joshua Buatsi finally fighting for a version of a world title. I think it's an interim WBO against Willie Hutchinson, who upset the odds on the 5 versus 5 show against Craig Spider Richards. What do you make of that fight?
I think it's a good matchup. It's a good fight for both men. I think Willie Hutchinson's come on leaps and bounds. He's a different fighter today. He's a mature young fighter. Again, he's had one or two. He's had a blip in his career. You learn from these. It's not the end. The young fighters, people make mistakes. It's all about bettering yourself. And he's really come on. I see that as being a very, very good fight, a tough fight. But I don't know. Listen, I'm not going to sit on the fence. I think Willie Hutchinson. I don't really know much about Buatsi. I've seen him fight, but can he really punch? But I know Willie Hutchinson can. He's powerful. He's got a good dig on him. So it's going to be interesting, that fight. But I'll edge towards Willie Hutchinson, I think. Probably because I know him as well. So there you are. Probably a little bit biased, but but look, that fight can tip either way, to be honest. But I just think Willie Hutchinson, we haven't seen the best of him yet, and I think we will do in this fight.
And then you've got a very intriguing fight up at middleweight between two fighters who've made their names at lower weights in Josh Kelly and Liam Smith. Josh Kelly probably needs that big win at this stage of his career. Liam Smith's already won a world title, but still in there, upset Chris Eubank Jr. in their first fight, and then had some issues training for the rematch. What do you make of that one?
I didn't even know they was boxing.
Oh, all right.
But you told me something. I mean, that's a good fight. It's a very good fight. I know Liam Smith very well. Good fighter. And it just depends how ready Liam is. So I'm sure he'll be up for this fight. So let's see. He'll have a bit between his teeth. What happened in his last one? Because he seemed to be a little bit all over the place for the last fight he had against the rematch with Eubank, isn't it?
Yeah.
People said he had problems with his ankles or whatever. I don't know, but he didn't look the same man as what he looked the first time round. So clearly there was issues in the background. So I don't know what them issues are, but that's the way it looked to me. But I'm sure if Liam's on his A game, he'd take some beating for sure. So it's going to be a good fight.
And one that many are picking to be the fight of the night from an action perspective, Josh Warrington, who's never really in a dull fight, going up against Anthony Kakachi, who surprised a lot of people in taking apart Joe Cordina not too long ago for the world title. How do you kind of weigh that one up?
Both good fighters again. These are the type of fights we want to see because you can't pick either one. But what Kakachi did against Cordina needs maximum credit because Cordina can fight. He's a good fighter. And what he did in that fight was exemplary boxing for me. So he's He didn't seem to be missing much. He was relaxed under pressure. And I thought it was a perfect performance. So if he can perform like that, he's going to be pretty difficult to stop, I think.
Yeah, it's an excellent card, isn't it? Top to bottom. You must be quite happy with how that's going. You've been calling for more competitive fights for a couple of years now. Is it a shame in a way that it's taken Turkey Al Sheikh and Riyadh season to make it happen in the UK rather than, it's just happening through our own fighters and promoters?
Well, it's made it a lot easier because the money is there. So it's any business is easy if there's a pot of gold there. It's going to be shared out. Sure. So that's why it's easier. But it's definitely good for boxing. We're seeing these good fights. We want to see winners and losers. We're not interested in seeing people unbeaten for years on year's end. And there's plenty of people out there who could have boxed and they haven't boxed. That's not good for the fighter. It's not good for the boxing fans. It's not good for anybody. So fighters are there to test themselves. It's like the way I look at it from a training point of view. What am I doing? Spending hours of my life in a gym training a fighter to protect the fighter. I'm training that fighter because I believe that fighter can be one of the best fighters in the world. That's what I train a fighter for. I ain't training a fighter to get me livid or I need to do this, do that because we can get more money. That's the last thing on my mind. I'm in that gym working with these fighters to get the best out of them. So what do I need to do? To get the best out of them, I want them to train. I want them to compete against the best. I don't want to get in the gym, spend hours of my time to go and fight a lemon somewhere that, 99% you're going to win. Because we've all got a pair of eyes. Why waste time like that? You either got it or you haven't. At that level, it's put up or shut up. And fighters need to fight each other. So the answer to your question is I'm very happy they're fighting each other because, I'm looking forward to watching them. Where before, I see who's fighting, who it's against, and I'm going out. I'm not even stopping to watch it. Unless I've got absolutely nothing else to do, I'll put the TV on. That's what I mean. Because if fights are so lopsided, who's interested in that? Nobody wants to see it.
So let me ask you this then. I think it's a nice one to end on. Outside of your own fighters, purely as a boxing fan, someone who enjoys watching boxing, what fight would you most like to see that hasn't happened yet?
Oh, Danny, I don't know. I think there's a lot of very good fighters out there. I think a lot of fights now seem to be happening. So I've got no complaints really. I think Canelo springs to mind. There's some people he could face that needs to happen. And I think all these type of fights they all need to face off against each other. I think Beterbiev, that's a good fight. Who's he facing off
against Bivol.
Yeah, that's a cracking fight.
That's a really good fight, yeah.
These are the fights we want to see. Pick the best against the best. But for me, Canelo should have rematched Bivol. That's another thing I don't like to see. Where they get beat, they go another route and don't fight the opponent again. Do you know what I mean? At that stage where they are, they should be fighting again. So if there's politics involved, I don't know. I'm only an outsider looking at it. But if you believe you're the best in the world, if you don't get it right on Sunday or Monday, you get it right on Friday. It's another day. It's another day, different day. It's up to you to make that different. So for me, all the fighters, shouldn't matter win, lose, or draw, keep on fighting.
Great stuff. Peter, really appreciate it. It's always an education. Safe travels out for sparring. And best of luck with camp.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. Good to speak with you.
Cheers, Peter. Take care, mate.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.